Listen to the 48 Hours podcast for shocking murder cases and compelling real-life dramas from one of television's most watched true crime shows. Go behind the scenes of each episode with award-winning CBS News correspondents and producers in Postmortem, a weekly deep dive. Listen to 48 Hours wherever you get your podcasts.
Inspired by the life of the savvy and ambitious Colombian businesswoman Griselda Blanco comes a new Netflix original limited series. Griselda tells the story of a devoted mother who, with her lethal blend of charm and relentless savagery, creates one of the most powerful cartels in history. Witness Sofia Vergara's captivating transformation into the godmother of the underworld. Griselda, now streaming only on Netflix.
Barenaked, 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 ABCs. First of all, thank you for joining us this week on our special episode. Happy Hanukkah and Merry Christmas to all the listeners out there. And this week we did have some audio problems when we were talking with Andy. We did the interview over Zoom, which in recording it that way, took all of our audio, all of us together, and spliced it onto one track. So therefore, when one of us is talking over the other or laughing at something that Andy says, unfortunately, it means that I'm not able to pull that apart, give spaces in between, and hear everyone's statements. While it would have taken a little bit more time to do so, I wish that we had gathered that. Unfortunately, it wasn't possible in this situation. And the other piece of that is, of course, unfortunately, I don't know why, but we had some audio problems coming off from Andy's microphone. It wasn't noticeable during the interview. Everything sounded wonderful, and we could hear everything he was saying, but in looking and listening to it afterwards, there was definitely some audio problems that entered in. I've done what I can using a number of different filters to boost the sound and to get that canny sound out so he doesn't sound like he's coming from out of a well. And you will hear that at times when I wasn't able to edit it because a couple of us were talking over each other. However, I did fix it for the most part, and I noticed that I can hear it. So I'm hoping that you do too. Please enjoy this wonderful and very generous interview from Andy. He gave us a amazing amount of time. So once again, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and please enjoy this.
Welcome to the Barenaked ABCs. Tonight I am joined by Aaron and friend of the podcast, Jeff Whitmire. Thank you guys for joining me.
Hey.
And for your listening pleasure, audience, on your travel to the holiday festivities of any sort, we will be foregoing our discussion of Barenaked Ladies songs this week. We will return with that in a couple of weeks as we discuss grade 9. But this week, when I was in grade 9, tonight's guest was joining Barenaked Ladies. While our guest was with Barenaked Ladies, the Yellow Tape was the first independent release to be certified platinum by Canada. Gordon went diamond, and those numbers are from 2000, so that was almost 20 years ago, so who knows what they are today. He's released 4 Brothers Creeggan's albums, the last one being in 2002. He's released 3 Andiworks albums. He has done a harp duet with Jennifer Swartz and Laurie Gimmel. He has written the orchestrations for the Barenaked Ladies appearances with the symphony orchestras of Toronto and the Boston Pops. He has written and conducted the orchestrations for Stephen Page with the orchestra in the Maritime Provinces last year. He's produced Mike Evans' album, I'll Bring the Stereo, and produced 3 other albums for Stéphane Morin, Isaac Neto, and La Courage de la Mer, a musical about the life of Quebec nun Danielle Belanger. He has played percussion, keyboards, sung or arranged songs on various albums, including Snack Time, Mike Evans' Good Watermelon, and Do You Feel the World, and Jake and the Leprechauns' A Long Dash, and has composed music for the Quebec Ultimate Frisbee Highlight DVD of 2008.
Now that's Andy. One I did not know that.
Andy, what have you been doing in the meantime to explore that creative side? I mean, you've disappeared.
I disappeared on your guys' radar, but I've been involved in local stuff out here, which is getting involved with the New Brunswick's Symphony Orchestra, which is the province I'm living in here in Canada is New Brunswick. So they have a symphony orchestra. So I'm involving myself in there. I'm getting involved in organizing their family concerts. So it's a little bit of conducting. It's a little bit of choosing repertoire. I wrote a piece for sort of the principal players of the wind instruments. So it's called a woodwind quintet. So I wrote them a piece, and I've been producing local groups here, teaching, and I'm doing whatever I can get going. Occasional show with my brother. We played recently in Stratford, Ontario, for the Stratford Music Festival last summer. Great time. And just trying to keep it musical, just trying to have a good musical life.
That's excellent.
Doing a little bit of everything.
Where do you teach, Andy?
I teach either at the schools where my kids are going, or I teach right here in my studio. Right, my piano's right there.
Very nice.
So I'm also working on Andiworks 4.
I was going to ask. That's
yeah,
excellent. Good to hear.
Yeah. So just always experimenting and having a good time and doing whatever I can get going. And whenever someone asks me to compose something, I'm right about it. So the harp piece you mentioned is one, but there's been a bunch since as well.
Now I can imagine that when you have done the production and the writing and the orchestration for those big Barenaked Ladies songs with the orchestras, like that had to have been pretty difficult to transpose it for all that.
It's kind of adding a huge, powerful element to what's already there. So you've got to understand the song, you've got to understand the musical part, and then you've got to sort of figure what the intention is, try to figure out where the energy is, and decide, what the approach is going to be, is to match the energy and sort of pretend that the orchestra is like part of the band, like when they're rocking, the orchestra's rocking, or treat them as, filling in whenever I can musically do it, and I treated them as part of the band. So yes, it's a monumental task of doing like an hour of music for an orchestra. That's one thing I've learned. A lot of paper, it's a lot of time. Yeah, it's a big deal. But it is hard, but it's also amazing, to meet all those musicians and see them react to the arrangements, and hear the musicians, like the guys in the band, react to them as well. And it's really powerful when you get an orchestra behind you, really, really powerful. So it was a great opportunity to get into some of those tunes that I didn't know as well. Some of the stuff that they've done since I left. It was great to get inside, and just call Jim about bass lines and say, okay, what do you want to do here? And call Kevin about, okay, what the heck are you playing here? Can you give me a little more insight? What's going on there? And his solo on Big Bang Theory, for example, I had to slow that down and learn it, and then figure out how I was going to get into the orchestra. Just great fun times, and like you said, really hard.
Very cool.
And from what I remember hearing from other interviews you've had, like you enjoy that challenge. You like doing things that are very academic, but also doing a lot of research around stuff and trying new stuff.
Absolutely. I'm not a big fan of repeating. I like to move forward all the time, and this was a great way to just get groovy and try out different orchestrations as well. I really wanted to be there and see how the different orchestras were reacting to this stuff and hearing how it sounded. And I learned so much. They did a tour in Western Canada of a bunch of orchestras, so we could mention the Vancouver Orchestra, the Calgary Philharmonic, the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra, and the Winnipeg one as well, and the Kitchener. So
wow,
experience working with all those orchestras, and I'm hoping they're going to do some sort of tour or a bunch of appearances in the States. I'm hoping that's going to happen.
From your mouth to their ears.
Yeah, exactly.
They've already sold a ticket if they decide to do that.
Cool.
You play percussion, numerous percussion instruments. Yep. Keyboards, piano, play guitar. Is there any
ukulele
instruments that you like? Ukulele, like what don't you play?
Sousaphone.
what I don't play is much longer. Do you want me to get into it?
The kazoo.
I want to get into some of the earlier stuff, if that's all right, and then kind of we can talk a little bit of some of the Brother Creeggan stuff. Would that be all right?
Yeah.
I read that you may have had a hand to play in Dat Fodder, the hidden track that's on Gordon. Did you have any parts to play in the composition of that?
Okay, I don't really know what you're talking about. Dat Fodder. I'm not even sure what that is. Is that the little bit at the end?
Yeah, that's the extras stuff and the clips and the expansion off from the end of Crazy that's at the end. They kind of gave it that non-definitive name of Dat Fodder somewhere along the way.
Okay, now I understand what you mean. Okay. Well, the extension of Crazy was, I think, a collaborative effort involving everyone in the band, plus Michael Philip Voivoda had a lot to do with that as well. The part that I added to it would be kind of adding some harmonic basis to the thing. Like you can hear me improvising and sort of changing the harmony a bit. And some of it's used, some of it's not used, but it's kind of helping the thing sort of create a little bit of form. And you can hear like Martin Tielli wanted to learn what I was doing so that he could react to it. And those are some of the fun bits about that process. I remember that. All the little like text, little samples and stuff, that was Stephen Ed and Tyler kind of getting their hands wet in that. And then I don't feel Voivoda was always just working textures, trying to find how are we going to get from here to there, and adding some more percussion stuff. And but that was a fun process. We were just really having a good time with that. As far as that ended bit where people are laughing and there's little tidbits of here, that's basically constructed by Michael Philip Voivoda. He was recording all the time, so whenever there was a funny conversation in the studio, he would tag it, and then it was kind of like a little bloopers reel at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Makes it different than all the other albums I'd ever heard up to that point. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
Did you have any? I know the credit is given to Jim, but I also heard that how much you guys collaborate on a lot of other stuff. Like, did you have any part in writing and creating "I Love You"?
Sure. Yeah, Jim and I basically share that songwriting. That was basically one of the first Brothers Creeggan songs for real, where we really enjoyed just trying to make it jazzy as much as we can. We're students of jazz, and still are, and just trying to have some fun with that. And enjoy the vocal parts. And the guys really jumped in and had a good time with that. So that was fun making that.
I'll let these guys also jump in with questions. I feel like I'm gonna monopolize the evening if I get a chance.
Well, I actually, Andy, I had a question for you. In the Jeff's musical car interview, which was fantastic, you said something that really stood out to me, and I know I'm kind of jumping ahead chronologically here in your career, but you had made a comment where you said that when you went to McGill that you were taught, or that what you took away with that was take what you think music is and turn it on its head.
Stole my question,
and
Jeff.
I love that. Oh, I'm sorry. And I love that line. I'm just wondering, what you meant by that and how that inspired your writing, as far as Brothers Creeggan and the Andiworks albums.
All right. So Andiworks 1, I would say, was written almost as a projection on what being a composer is. Like I was just imagining what it could be. And then on Andiworks 2, it's kind of almost like the reaction to my education in somewhat. So some of the pieces that I wrote during my time as a student are on that album, and some other things too. Some of them are also reactions to what I was learning, the contemporary music. Some of them were just, I just need something that's simple and tonal, but sort of it's a mixture up. And then Andiworks 3 is me just having a good time, sort of after having time away from school, and also having young kids, just having fun. And first time I had a studio and I could put all my instruments together, and I was just having a good time. But anyway, get back in school. When you study anything at a really, really intense level, you learn about all the giants of the form, right? So be it art or music or math or physics or whatever, you're sort of forced to learn and digest all the great minds that have gone into the field, right? So, and your world grows so much in such a little amount of time that it's really often hard to digest and deal with it and keep sane and keep liking music, because what those great minds did and pushed music to its edge, it just kind of makes you kind of question about, okay,
what do I do? Yeah.
what did I think before and who I was then, and now that I know this, now that my music world is like busted apart, where do I fit in that, and how do I feel about all those things? And so it's like the floor that you thought you were standing on was just removed, and so you're suddenly floating. And so it takes a while to figure out, okay, where am I going to place myself into this? And I think most people go through that in one way or another. Some people deny it and say, forget it, I'm just going to do country music, and I don't care what the hell Stockhausen or whatever, or Ligeti, those people, I don't care what they were doing. I like country music, and I'm going to do it. Some people have that reaction, and some people, say, well, that's the edge of things. Well, I'm going to go into it too. So some people jump hard into the whole contemporary world, and they become academic composers, and they go that route. I'm sort of somewhere in between. I still want to push forward, but I didn't go as far as them. But I'm still I still like music. I know that. And developed my own style, and I slowly, just slowly coming out of that and revisiting it occasionally. But I found a place that I naturally go to, and I'm at peace with it. So does that answer your question?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was great. Thank you.
Andy, if I could just get you to elaborate, when you're talking about people out on the edge, are you talking about like Schoenberg and Reich, or like Yoko Ono, or who specifically? Anyone in particular that you think of when you think of people who are really like pioneers in contemporary music?
No question. He was important. He was someone we took a good hard look at. Stravinsky is a hero.
Yeah.
He pushed things in certain ways. But, we went into Berg, we went into Webern, we went into Stockhausen, we went into Ligeti, and all kinds of other ones. And they all blew my mind for different reasons, So those are some of the composers that we studied, The ones that my favorite aren't necessarily them. Like, I still realize that my favorite is still Bartók. I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Bell is one of my favorites, Debussy. And I haven't really gone, sort of Stravinsky is one that I really enjoy as well. So he's kind of one that everyone likes, the academics and the more pop contemporary.
His first audiences didn't like him so much, but history.
He knew as well as anybody at the time that the fact that he was making a fuss, about it meant that it was so.
Well, I can see the Debussy thing, because a lot of your music, through the Andiworks are very ethereal, and I can definitely see that influence too, which is brilliant. I listen to Sleep Suite a lot, which is one of my favorite of your pieces. And
thank you.
It's just fantastic.
Thank you. It's always trying stuff, and experimenting, and it's part of experimentation is just not knowing what's going to come out. And sometimes, not the perfect thing, but sometimes you fall upon some real great things. So thank you for saying that.
No problem.
And Steve Reich, of course, as a percussionist, he was one of our heroes.
Me too.
Learned a lot from his thing as well. And just recently I saw Akhenaten by Philip Glass.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That was fun to watch. I haven't sort of been back in that world in a while, so it was really cool to get back into that whole world. But the thing about Reich is just so great. It's just he uses percussion so much, and I love that as a percussionist. And one of my friends has kind of made him nauseous, made him want to throw up. But I just something about it I really enjoy. It's something about the slow musical process that is going on, grooves and.
So it's actually interesting to note because you mentioned Glass. I brought up Reich, but. When I was listening to, Closing the Windows? Opening the Windows, pardon me. I'm an introvert.
You were close, wrong
I'm an
direction.
introvert, so I close the windows.
The sequel, Closing the Windows.
I'm going to wait for that one. That's going to be right up my house. But no, Opening the Windows, that's right. I was wondering if there was a little bit of Glass or a little bit of Reich in there.
Sure, absolutely.
Definitely like some more bombastic moments, but there was those intricate moving parts that just kind of changed subtly. That's one thing I really appreciate about
listen to the piece drumming by Steve Reich.
Yeah, yeah.
How it just slowly develops into full-edged groove, and you hear the beginning of Opening the Windows the way, I just add stuff. I mean, it's the same thing for sure.
I really enjoyed that piece.
Yeah, and then you do that on the dulcimer, and then I doubled it on steel pan, and then we did different things, and then gradually figured out a form, and then Jim improvised over top, and then I did a piano run reacting to Jim's stuff, and it sort of became something different, but definitely influenced by drumming by Reich, no question about it.
Excellent. So speaking of Jim, you and your brother were the OG Backstreet Boys. So wait. It was the correct me because I'm blanking this one. The Backstreet Basement Boogie Blues Band. Is that right?
Oh, good. Yeah, nice job. Yeah.
Thank you. How old were you guys, and what kind of music did you play? Was it blues, or was it just kind of you guys jamming? Or
it was a band that we created. I think I was in grade 7 or 8 at the time.
Nice.
Jim was learning bass, so he wanted to learn how to do walking bass. So we started with, I can't remember what the first thing we did. It was probably Elvis tunes. Mm-hmm. And then just gradually evolved, found the Blues Brothers music, tried to do a bunch of Blues Brothers stuff, and got a horn section. And then
that's awesome.
Met a great guitar player who knew Stray Cats, cat stuff.
That's great.
And then Graceland came out around the middle of our high school time.
So Paul Simon.
And we did Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes.
Nice.
So
great song.
We were just basically using that as a vehicle to explore music, and then we discovered Weather Report and version of Birdland and Teen Town, and then Jaco Pastorius busted our minds apart, and so we did a bunch of stuff.
I just reacted like that because I was gonna ask you if Weather Report was an influence on you guys, because you definitely have kind of a fusiony kind of rock jazz thing going on. And
sure, absolutely. I remember the day that Jim came home from the library with the Heavy Weather album.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff.
That would have been, I must have been grade 10 or something, grade 10 or 11, and I just remember him going, "These are the best musicians in the world." And we listened to it and gradually figured out that I think it was probably true, and
they're great.
Jaco Pastorius still is a major influence and hero. I mean, I'm not a bass player, but just his fearlessness and his restless spirit and the way he just did so many really cool things. And he also, of course, did many great things about just bass playing. He influenced the world of bass playing. But I was mainly interested in just his fearlessness, just the way he just went about stuff. Anyway, and then at the same time, there's Alex Acuna, who is a wonderful percussionist, and I listened to his videos and tried to play congas like him, and love the way he plays drum set. It's completely unconventional. Mm-hmm. But Delino, we've seen him, play in all kinds of different bands, Spiral Gyra, and different other groups, and playing with Joni Mitchell, and of course Joe Zawinul. His approach to his keyboards definitely was one of my favorite pieces is Brown Street from the 830 album, Weather Report. And I still love the Weather Report stuff. Not all of it, but I really, really, really enjoy that music. Wayne Shorter. Yep.
Well, and going off that, I did that. I mean, I had another question. If we even go back farther, I'm really curious to know, what you and Jim were listening to or musically influenced. Because when I listen to a lot of Creeggan brothers, you listen to You Will Be Adored. One of the things that amazes me about you too is those tight harmonies you guys do are fantastic. And I just envision a young Andy and Jim, 6 years old, singing to some Everly Brothers or Simon and Garfunkel. What was the musical childhood like for you guys growing up?
It was parents loved music, so be it we listened to the Simon and Garfunkel greatest hits, 8-track a lot, and we listened to Johnny Cash. That was one we listened to.
Nice.
I'm trying to think of the band. It'll come back to me. Anyway, another group. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I'll get it. I'll find it. Anyway, listen to those guys a lot, and listen to you already mentioned it. Everly Brothers, for sure. Listen to them, and so harmonies. We sang in church choir. Mom and Dad had their own choir.
Oh, nice.
I was kind of a rare breed of grade 9 kids who sang in the choir. And instead of I got kicked out of the drum the band class because I was a bit precocious, and the band teacher was a bit sensitive. So, I said, well, shit, I'll go and hang out in the vocal class and sing.
Nice.
So we loved singing. We loved singing harmonies. We had this quartet, a cappella quartet called the Synthetics, and we still get together with the guys whenever I'm in Toronto. We try to get together and sing some of that stuff. And we just love it, just love singing harmonies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we were listening to, and I'll try to find the name of that group.
Was that the Kingston Trio?
Kingston Trio, thank you.
Yeah, okay. I knew that sounded familiar. Well, Andy, you mentioned being at school, and it's really interesting because I am a percussionist also, and my teacher would insist that I refer to myself as a percussionist as much as when I was a kid I wanted to be a drummer. But that's the thing is I came there, she's like, okay, well, Aaron, what do you want to play? So I want to play the drums. She's like, well, you can't just be a drummer. If you want to play the drums, you have to be a percussionist. So, I learned the vibes, and I learned the glockenspiel, the timpani, and all that. And at the time, I was like, I can't wait to get on the drum set. But I am really glad in retrospect because it has really made being like a multi-instrumentalist so much easier to know to have such a bass like that. So my question to you is, were you one of those people like me who just wanted to get into the drums and you got into that stuff? Or do you always want to be into like the more, I don't want to say esoteric, but just the other various percussion elements?
I don't know. I played piano, and my mom was a piano teacher, and my dad played piano by ear. So there was just piano was around. We heard it a lot. Like our soundtrack of our childhood from after school to supper time was basically the watching Flintstones and Three's Company and WKRP, and listening to mom give piano lessons at the same time. So, like a simple Bach airs and all the stuff that you do as that's the soundtrack of my, 3:30 to 6 o'clock at night, I played drums, played piano. I enjoyed playing marimbas and xylophones. I kind of liked it all.
Yeah.
And I think my ambition eventually, when I was in grade 10, 11, was to become a timpanist.
Oh, really?
In an orchestra.
Timpani's fun. It's you get the bouncing off of the big heads and everything. It's just some very I don't know. It's just very, you put yourself into it a lot. I feel like when you're playing timpani.
Yeah. But around the time I joined Barenaked Ladies, which is kind of funny, I decided that I was going to come and bring congas because I wanted to get into hand drums. So I started on congas, right? They didn't want a drum set at that time either. So I was like, well, I'll just bring drum set or bring the congas. And try and figure out how to properly play the congas at the same time. And Jim brought his double bass because he was working more on double bass, but we could have easily just kind of showed up with the drum set and electric bass, but we wanted a different kind of vibe. And in retrospect, without the cymbals and without the electric bass, it allowed us to really focus on singing harmony. And the sound of the beginning of the Barenaked Ladies was really harmony based. And it also allowed Jim and Ed to really dominate the rhythm. Like, as a conga player, as a percussionist, I'm not so much of a dominator, more of a follower. And so they really developed a really rhythmic bond, and I was able to sort of float on top of that with the congas. And when I moved to piano, it was the same deal. Like if you listen to the beginning of Crazy, before Tyler comes in, that's sort of the beginning of what Barenaked Ladies sounded like at the beginning. There was a lot of vocals. The guitar, the rhythm guitar drove it, and the bass, the two of them had an amazing bond. And I would just sort of float with some chords on the piano. And so, I approached it more orchestrally, I think. And I was kind of playing a lot of drums, and I was a drummer, but I decided, I didn't want to do that. And then when I left do this whole Canada World Youth, and when I came back and Tyler was the drummer, it's like, oh, okay, play more piano.
Yeah.
And Tyler, you'll see his style of drumming is more of a forceful thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that was something I had to deal with coming back. But anyway, that little nugget, Crazy, you can hear almost the evolution of the band, whereas you can hear the rhythm guitar, you can hear the harmonies, you can hear how the rhythm guitar and the bass work together, you can hear the piano just floating on top, and then you can hear Tyler bash in and then establish what the rhythm is, right? So it's a really, really telling piece of music, right? It's very cool. And he brought rock and roll. I mean, that's one thing Tyler brought. And he's unashamed about that. And something I think eventually that I realized that what he brought was something that I wasn't interested in eventually. So you can imagine that we had a lot of really fascinating and deep talks about that as I was contemplating leading the band, for sure.
I think that's one of the things that makes those early years so interesting. Is that every member brought something a little different to it, and there were these kind of clashing musical interests that made these songs that were kind of hard to place in any given genre sometimes, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, for sure.
But they also blended really well together.
Yeah.
I think, and I think clash is the wrong word because they didn't really clash. They blended. Like it might have been different genres, but they kind of
out of disorder came order.
Right.
There's the disparate, and you bring them together to fuse them into something beautiful.
Yeah. Well, if you listen to some of the covers that we did early on, there were bluegrass tunes. There was a Madonna tune. There was there was a Talking Heads tune. Like all kinds of stuff, and it reflected the interests of both Steve and Ed, which are fascinating, and it was great. Part of being at Barenaked Ladies for me was just an incredible learning experience about all this stuff that we didn't know. I mean, Jim and I had our musical heritage, which involved classical music, jazz music, and all the stuff I talked about with we shortened it eventually to the Backstreet Band. But and then we realized, holy crap, like Steven had so many other influences, and the stereo in the van was such an incredible place of learning. It was as we toured and listened to the stuff, and then the whole rap as well. We learned so much about rap, and Ed was a funny dude, right? He's into bluegrass and rap at the same time, and Steve was in Smiths, of course, and of course. And we would bring in our musical stuff, and it was a really rich palette.
You mentioned briefly a minute ago, and also like on that interview that you did with Jeff's musical car, you did a really great job of explaining your reason for leaving Barenaked Ladies, and I definitely encourage people to go out and listen to that interview because I don't want to repeat it because it really was a great interview. A big part of that was that you wanted to go down a different path. Was part of that difference wanting to write more, wanting to do more jazz-inspired music, more percussions? Like, what was the difference that was behind it? Not speaking badly of the band, because you guys just went in different directions, but like, what was that difference?
Well, one of the things you can already hear, I've said it a bunch of times, I wanted to always move forward. I wanted to use experiences as learning, and so for me, Barenaked Lady University was an incredible time of learning. But I think once I realized a little bit about the pattern of where things were headed, the kind of songs that were coming out, and just where it was headed, I kind of took a look, and I realized that it wasn't something that I wanted to just continue doing as a pattern. That's one thing is a pattern in my life is what it was sort of the desire for a lack of pattern, right? So that's part of it. Part of it is just a sort of an ego. I realized as we were getting popular that I was starting to believe in myself and my talents, and started to think that I had something to offer. And for a while there, tried to, like as Brothers Creeggan was an attempt to just make some demos actually for the next Barenaked Ladies album. We realized that we had something that wasn't quite Barenaked Ladies, and we lived with that and was okay with that. And I tried to insert, little things like, and I almost kind of tongue-in-cheek called the tune that I contributed on Maybe You Should Drive, Little Tiny Song, because I felt like that was the best that I had.
One of the important things that Andy said here was, I almost kind of tongue-in-cheek called the tune that I contributed on Maybe You Should Drive, Little Tiny Song, because I felt like that was the place that I had.
I was going to ask you about that.
So it was it's partly just about slowly believing and sort of developing a young man's ego about what I could do. And eventually that became more important. And I thought that I could just leave the band and become, an artist as big or as them, but of course that was a dumb thing. And I've learned about it, and I've learned also just naturally where I gravitate and what I want to do. And so that was part of it. Another part of it was I was always interested in classical music and jazz music and instrumental music, not necessarily having a song to sing all the time. So that's what Andiwork is partly about. That's what the composing is about. I remember one of the days I came out with something that I was writing on the vibraphone, and I just showed it to the guys in the band, and they were like, "Yeah, that's good. What are you going to sing on top of it?" It's like, no, that's it. And so there was definitely a different approach there. So I was interested in doing, and like almost the opening the windows piece was almost like the first time we had money to pay for studio time. We had our instruments. It's like, let's have fun.
I think that's probably why I like that song so much. I can feel that sense of freedom, and you just kind of spreading your wings on that. I really enjoyed that track. Yeah. So actually, let me ask you this, Andy. Is that what I Sing a Lot is about? That you did sing a lot and you wanted to write some instrumental music, or what?
No, that was completely an improvised tune that I remember singing in a New York cab.
Okay.
And at some point we kind of said, "Oh yeah, maybe you could sing that with that bass line." The Jim was some funky bass line you had going, and no, it wasn't a political reaction to it.
That's the thing I've learned. Sometimes it's just a song.
Yeah.
So actually,
I'm going to interrupt Aaron real quick.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm going to keep bringing it back to BNL because I'm the BNL guy. I have the most out of all of us. You tended to bring your own flavor to the band, doing like a bunch of different things, different rhythms, and I love the techniques and the variety of percussion and other sounds that you brought to the band. It really kind of brought a wall of sound that blended really beautifully in. It's fair to say that I distinctly miss the Andy flavor that you always added to those early demos and the first two albums. When I think of it, like my favorite example is Brian Wilson. Without you, that song is missing an essential ingredient with all the different things that you add in there.
By the way, that is objectively one of the best songs in the entire catalog.
For all the reasons.
Most would agree with that.
Yeah.
I know that one of the many flavors that you brought was percussion. And on Great Provider, you did a lot of interesting things with the piano. But on Brothers Creeggan albums, like you did so many parts. So, for example, like the slow beats, the slow piano with the fast beats on Long and Slow. You're playing on Stuck on You. I guess what I was wondering is, like, on Great Provider, which we just discussed last week, what would you have done with the percussion if you could have? And if you and Jim had covered it for like Brothers Creeggan, like what would you have done a little bit differently with that?
I don't know. First of all, I was there. We did it in the early days of Barenaked Ladies, and then put it aside for the Gordon years, and then brought it back for Maybe You Should Drive. So I was involved in the early years of it, and I was involved a lot in the version that we used in Maybe You Should Drive. So percussion wise, I think what we did as a band, I really like. We kind of went. Tyler was doing a great job on it, so I didn't really feel like percussion wise it required a whole lot more. But I did a lot of, and Jim did as well, just working the harmony of that A minor thing, and I really enjoyed the texture that we came up with. It was really a nice, very rich song, and then it was quite emotional for Ed. It's about his father, and I just really felt like we found some harmony that really helped the song. So
no, it's a gorgeous song.
Done anything else on percussion? If there was no Tyler, then what would I've done on the drums? Probably about the same kind of thing that he did. Probably not as good as he actually did. So I don't feel like there's anything missing percussion wise. But that one, I would like to have had an orchestra available. I think add some strings to that one and it make it real nice. There's some very nice. I like the richness of the. It kind of goes from A minor down. The bass line goes down, and it goes to F sharp, and then a nice F major 7. That's some real nice harmony. So I like to. I enjoy that part, and I'm really proud of the just the live take that we did. That take was really fun, and I was enjoying the sound of the Rhodes at the time, and it was some fun stuff. It was a real nice performance in studio of the band. I felt that was real nice.
Oh, I think I would. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, definitely.
I think I would be remiss in my duties. Tracy knows. Probably every 3 or 4 episodes I bring up They Might Be Giants. So I have to ask because I feel like I hear a lot, especially in the early days, a lot of They Might Be Giants influence. So that might be partially Steven, but I'm wondering how much of that was you, Andy. Are you a big They Might Be Giants fan? Or
Not so much.
No, really? Wow.
I learned about They Might Be Giants through the other guys.
Yeah.
So we would listen to They Might Be Giants, in the band and stuff. But I couldn't really tell you very much about them. I knew they have an accordion.
Yeah, they do.
I haven't really, and I know that the guys absolutely, when they went in to do their children's album, that They Might Be Giants children's stuff was a big influence. And they respect a lot of what They Might Be Giants do. And I know, of course, there's a lot of humor in their music as well. So it was always an interesting study to say how they navigated being, artistic and funny at the same time. So it was always interesting to check out what was happening on their end. But I can't really, personally, I'm not really into, I like it and I remember liking it, but I haven't really listened to it in ages.
No, that's good to know. I was curious.
Yeah. But they were definitely on the radar, no question about it.
Yeah. But not from you. That's interesting. I was curious to know where that influence was coming from.
I would say Steve and
Probably
Tyler.
Steve, yeah.
Ned, just the 3 of them.
So Barenaked Ladies was inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame last year. That's 2018 for those of you watching in the roaring 20s. And I was pleased that both you and Steven were present for that. And you played piano on If I Had $1 Million on stage with the rest of the band. And Geddy Lee was there to induct you in as well. Was that a little surreal? How did that feel?
He's a musical hero from way back, right? I remember listening to Exit Stage Left, the album. And
oh, yeah.
Of course, I was drummer and no drummer.
Yeah. Neil Peart, man.
Plus, Neil Peart was from our neck of the woods, right? So
exactly.
I was at school with him, and we were pretty close to him. So I remember just wowing. I mean, before I even knew what a drum set was, I remember banging on pillows, pretending I was him.
No, I did the same with Pots and Pans. I'm with you. That's interesting. Yeah, I consider Rush, the Tragically Hip, and Barenaked Ladies to be like the Triforce of the Canadian rock music trilogy. Yeah.
The trifecta.
Yeah, the Trinity.
Completely left Justin Bieber out of that, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did. No, it's interesting. So you've settled in Moncton, is that correct?
Yep.
That's excellent. I spent many a summer up in Moncton with my aunt and uncle. It's a beautiful part of the country. I love New Brunswick, so excellent choice there.
Well, you kind of had
away from here.
You kind of had a reunion there too, because you mentioned New Brunswick, the Symphony Orchestra, and you conducted Steven not too long ago. How did that come about?
Well, I think the original idea was to get Barenaked Ladies in because they heard that there was a bunch of arrangements that I did, so they were able to make the connection, Barenaked Ladies, and me being there, former member, blah, blah, blah. I tried to get the ladies, but for some reason they didn't. But Steve was around, and they said, wow, next best thing, let's get Steve Page. Perfect. Yeah. So Steve came in, and those were fun shows. I did an arrangement for that show called Gravity and conducted it. It was a great experience. Everybody had a good time.
And of course, I'm going to bring us back to Barenaked Ladies again.
Sure, do it, man.
Your wife actually was on one of the albums. Yes. So your wife said something in French on It's All Been Done.
Correct.
And Steven says he doesn't know what she says. Do you know what she said?
Yes, I do. I remember.
But he's not saying.
No, I'll tell you, but it's a story. First of all, she almost gets more royalties for that than I get from Barenaked Ladies, which is funny. Like she gets performance royalties for talking to the phone, saying one thing. Anyway, I remember Jim. We were in studio. Jim called me up. We were in our Montreal apartment. He said, "Yeah, Andy, how's it going? Yeah, hey, Jim. Can you pass the phone to Natasha?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." Okay. So she's like, "Hello." And so basically, they said, "Can you say something like in French, like something like you're tired of this, or you're just kind of." So she tried different things, and the thing that she ended up saying is "Je suis tanné," and said it quite fast, je suis tanné. And it's really hard to hear. Even, like we show it to our kids and I was like, I can't really hear that. It's so tough. But it's that's what she's saying, je suis tanné, which means I'm tired of this, or I'm fed up, or I'm sick of it.
Now, where in the song is that? Like you said, it's hard to hear.
It's right after the bridge. When you up and say, and then there's a little moment there.
If I play the same 3 chords, will you just yawn and say?
Okay.
In that, if you listen, I can't remember if it's on the left or the right, but it's in there, and you can hear the sound of someone speaking on a phone.
So right after what you just yawn and say, basically, yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
And then it says, je suis tanné, which means I'm just fed up. I've had it.
When we come up on that song, I'm going to make sure I post that in right there so we can hear it.
So is she Quebecois, or does she just happen to speak French?
She's a francophone from New Brunswick.
Okay.
So they don't consider themselves Quebecois. They consider themselves Acadian.
Acadian, that's correct, yeah.
So it's a long history in the Maritimes where they had a colony in Nova Scotia, and then there was something called the deportation that happened at one point. So there's a lot of French people in Massachusetts, even Maine, and down in Corse, and there's the connection with the Acadians. And that's where Cajun comes from, Acadien.
Correct, yeah.
So it's all connected to the Francophones that lived in Nova Scotia.
And then got deported from Maine.
That's where my wife's descended.
Yeah, I actually live in Lewiston, Maine, which is it's either the top or second for French-speaking people in Maine by populace. Yeah. And I used to live in Biddeford, which is the other one. So whether this, and I speak a little French, but not much. I took a couple of semesters in college.
That's cool. Basically, we have 2 sons, and they go to French school, and basically they live in French.
Nice.
We're bringing up French, basically.
It's a very lyrical language. I love it. I gotta ask, as a fellow percussionist, someone who plays the keys, do you, Andy, have a particular key that you really like to play in? And then as a 2-parter question, do you have a favorite scale or mode just to listen to? For me, it's Mixolydian flat 6. I'm a big fan.
Mixolydian flat 6.
Yeah, it's like half major, half minor. It's really cool. It's very unique.
So flat 6. So if we're C, so C, D, E, F, G, A flat.
Right.
Flat.
It's almost got that harmonic minor thing going on, but in a major scale. So it just, I'm a music nerd, and I went to music school, so I'm happy to speak to someone else who did.
Right in there naturally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Oh, here we go. Nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's nice.
do you have a preferred, both for listening and playing it, do you have a preferred mode or scale or key?
Well, there are certain keys that are harder than others.
Yeah.
C
sharp.
But I'll say I like playing piano in F sharp.
Yep.
And that's because my dad, that's the key he plays in. So I learned he plays by ear in F sharp. So whenever I want to just play and have fun, play some of the old tunes that my dad used to play, it's always in F sharp. So I should definitely mention that key if we're talking about keys. C sharp minor is pretty nice. It's pretty natural on the piano. It's a real nice, rich key. As far as modes go, right now I'm pretty excited about minor 6th. So
yeah,
E flat G A, that chord.
Mm-hmm.
And Andiworks IV, for a while there, I was tossing around the idea of that basically being the central chord of the whole album.
Yeah,
moved away from that, but there's that 6th chord, that major 6th appears a lot. So cool. I'm excited about that particular chord, but I like them all.
I know it's a super nerdy question to ask, but no, thank you for that. And then one more before I back off and let these guys do a little talking. I know it's been some time since the last Brothers Creeggan album. I think 16 or 17 years. You mentioned there's an Andiworks IV to look forward to. Any chance of a Brothers Creeggan Volume 4 coming out?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Volume 5.
It's just
is it 5?
What's that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you guys have 4. That's right.
We've got definitely enough songs. And we talk about it every time we get together that we should do it, but then we don't get around to doing it. The brothers Creeggan have sort of become the fathers Creeggan, and as obsessed we were
Priorities.
Our own music. We're equally as creative and interested and obsessed about our own kids right now. So, and Jim's so busy with Barenaked Ladies that it's sometimes hard to justify to the family doing another project. Just time seems so precious, when you've got the kids. So I don't necessarily have a Barenaked Ladies right now. I'm doing all kinds of different things. And so for me, Brothers Creeggan would be a bigger piece and easily justifiable, but it's just hard to find the time. We see each other. We see each other as uncles, and we try to do Brothers Creeggan as much as we can. But it's a big deal. It's a big deal finding the time to make that happen. But we definitely want to do it, and it'll happen eventually. Maybe who knows when it's going to happen. But Andiworks 4 will probably happen before Brothers Creeggan 4, 5.
No, right? Well, we're looking forward to both of them.
Cool. Now, our listeners may or may not know that you came back for one other song for B&O after you left. Yeah. Can you tell us about your experience with Pollywog in a Bog and what you contributed, how that came about, and also in the video, which animal you're supposed to be in that video? Which animal is supposed to represent you?
Yeah, I don't know what animal I am. An animal? Are you sure that I am one?
I'm pretty sure there's 6 animals.
Oh, then the answer is I don't know. But Pollywog in a Bog, of course, is one of Jim's contributions to the Kids album, right? And I think at some point they realized that it had a bit of a Caribbean feel to it, right? So Tyler had the idea to get some steel pan in there, and of course, the person that they know the best who plays steel pan is me. So I walked in with my steel pan, even though I didn't really know how to play it all that well. I still don't, but I use it a lot. But so I just set up the steel pan and did a bunch of passes and played the steel pan solo on Pollywog in a Bog. And then we also sang on Eraser. I was one of the backup singers on Eraser. That was fun.
I did not know that. That's amazing.
Well, I was wondering, Andy, have you done any, or have you given thought to doing any scoring work for film or games or anything like that? Because I think you'd be incredible at it.
Thanks. Yeah, I think about it. I just don't know people who do it. I think that's the key.
Yeah, networking.
I know people that are orchestral musicians, and then that's sort of where I've been going lately is orchestrating for them or writing pieces for them. And the closest I've come most recently is do music for theater. There's a director, Kim Collier, who lives either in Vancouver or Toronto. I did 3 different plays with her, and fantastic experiences. Just so rich. If there are any dancers out there that want me to write for them, I'm right into that. So there's some stuff coming up. Hopefully I'll be able to write for the Atlantic Ballet. I'm hoping that's going to work out. But I love when we mix those mediums, and I love it so much. So I'm hoping to do more and more.
I was going to go off on that too, just because you're extremely eclectic. And first of all, if I didn't say it, I'm absolutely honored to be talking to you, because I take some flack from these guys and other Barenaked Ladies fans, because my favorite album is Maybe You Should Drive, which and your piano work on Life in a Nutshell, and just fantastic. But then going on beyond that, and then everything you've done with Brothers Creeggan and the styles you used there, and then Andiworks, I kind of get like 3 different styles in each album. The first one being, like I said, very ethereal, feels very experimental. The second one has a very jazzy classical feel, and then the third one, like you said, you were having fun with, a lot of electronica. Bell being a standout for me. I love Bell.
Oh, really? Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I love that. That's actually one of my driving songs. But and Aaron had mentioned video games, but I guess my other question is, any other forays you've looked at? Like, I'm also a big musical theater fan. Has that ever been something you wanted to go look into, like something more musical theater or stage show? Or...
Can we look forward to an Andy Creeggan Einstein on the beach?
Well, What's that? Hindsight on the Beach? What's that?
That was Philip Glass's 6-hour opera with no intermission.
No, I know. Okay.
Or scoring movies or anything like that. Like any other sounds or styles or genres that you have not yet really tackled that are kind of on your radar.
I would say I would like to compose more classical music, and it's slowly coming, and just always getting better at orchestrating and all those things. So I'm hoping for that kind of a scenario. I also love to record and just kind of do instrumental music as well. So I like that. Songwriting for me, I think is a really monumental task, and I feel like other people do it better than me. So when I write a song, it just takes years and years and years for me to just hone it, and I'm pretty shy about actually presenting it too. So I'd like to have some of the songs I've written in the last 20 years, have them see the light of day a little bit. So it's either with the next Brothers Creeggan, or maybe I'll put out an Andiworks album or with songs on it. I don't know. But the things that are on my radar are just more recording, more kind of Andiworks vibes, and more orchestral and classical stuff. Just really getting, composing is such a long process, and I feel still like I'm a young composer. And it's just, I'm starting to get old. But I still feel like I've got so much more to explore in that vein. So I'm hoping things will gradually come, and I'm starting to get a nice association with the New Brunswick Symphony, and so hopefully I'll be able to write some pieces for them. And just one piece alone for an orchestra is a big deal. It's composer. Yeah. So I'm hoping to get that chance in the next little while. My kids are starting to get older as well, and so one of the things that's kind of on my radar is that once they get sort of old enough, the two of them, or close to leaving the house, then I'm going to start to maybe travel a bit more, maybe study more conducting. I don't know, maybe go out and tour a little bit more, or just. But that's kind of on my radar. But we'll see what happens.
Well, I definitely think the time, like you mentioned, is a payoff in your music, because I see it. It's very complex and it's very intricate, and you can see the time that was spent in it. Like I said. Sleep Suite for me is a standout. I think that's a fantastic piece, from the percussion start, just how that goes on and just builds, and then some of the strings that come in there. But yeah, so I mean, like this is not a question. This is just me saying I just love your work for what you put into it. So
thank you.
We look forward if there's new things. Definitely look forward to hearing anything that you put out there, because I love all the stuff that's out there for both the Brothers Creeggan and the Andiworks. It's very different, but it's so interesting in that it's so varied.
Cool. Well, I appreciate that. And you saying so isn't taken lightly. Words of encouragement go far. And so I appreciate it.
One of the things that you mentioned in a previous interview was the Widdershins. And I tried high and low to find more information about the Widdershins. And couldn't find anything. Can you tell me about this group?
It was a great bunch in Vancouver when I was living there in 1996. Bernie Boulanger was the name of the guitar player. I still have a cassette lying around somewhere with us. You'd probably be interested in hearing that.
Definitely.
And then Neil Burnett. So Bernie Boulanger and Neil Burnett were the two leaders of the group. Neil plays harp and penny whistle and stuff like that. And it was very folky and slightly Gaelic kind of instruments. And I played a little percussion. I played the hammered dulcimer.
Ooh.
And what else did I play? I was doing nutty things. But it was a great, fun group to be in. Slightly dysfunctional. It didn't last too long. But there's a band called the Colorifics that came out of Vancouver, and that was Bernie Boulanger and his girlfriend, Lindsay Davis, who became an artist. I can't remember what her stage name was. Anyway, her name is Lindsay Davis, but she was the singer. Some of those names, but the Colorifics, Lindsay Davis, Bernie Boulanger, Neil Burnett, those are the guys in Vancouver who were involved in that. It was a great time, really crazy time. But just trying to get out of Barenaked Ladies and dealing with that in my head was a big deal. It took a while.
Do you mind if I ask you a little bit about some Brothers Creeggan stuff?
Sure.
Some of these are quick questions. So, like, first of all, who is the person who sang Sous la pluie? Is that right?
Sous la pluie, yeah, which means under the rain, you know.
Sous la pluie du beau temps, paisible comme une brise.
And it's my wife singing, Natasha.
No.
Ah, beautiful voice.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, on your first album, you have John Millard, who's singing and actually wrote Clown Song. And can you tell us a little bit more about who he is, how he came to kind of help out with this song and write this song and bring it to you guys? Like, can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. John Millard, wonderful dude. We just loved his voice. We were a big fan of his band, the Polka Dogs. We were in Toronto at the time. And we just brought him in because we loved his voice. We loved the way he told stories. And he helped us finish. Did he help us finish the tune? I can't remember if he's got a writing credit or not. He just was a great person to sing it, you know. So we were playing away and he sang it, and it was a fun time in studio. And he was into giving it a shot. You know, we were kind of a little bit new, and he was older and just a really cool, creative guy, and it was willing to give it a shot. And so, yeah, great artist, John Millard. You should check him out.
Now, I noticed that there's a pattern with some of these songs that you write, like Little Tiny Song, You Fall in Love, Will You Come Back to Me. They tend to be really short songs, but at the same time, take it in a bunch of different directions. Almost like the Beatles, like, why don't we do it in the road? Yeah. And so I'm kind of wondering, like, what your choice is around that, and like what inspired you to kind of write these songs where you stick to a simple theme, but then branch out to all these different ideas.
I don't know. Some songs they're quick ideas and they just happen, and you kind of go, oh, I guess that's that. You know, 30 seconds, just leave it there. And the other ones you want to flesh out. You know, that you feel like they're not finished unless you explored more parts or added things, or you know. But those ones, I don't know, they just felt like they were short and fine. Said what they had to say in this small amount of time. Or I was lazy, or...
It's hard to imagine with all the stuff that you do that the word lazy would ever apply to you.
Well, you know, yeah, it's not necessarily... I don't do a whole lot of things lightly, you know, artistically. It's usually done, sometimes flippantly or lightly, but then there's a whole lot of deliberating and listening to it and letting it stand the test of time, and sometimes the flippant little moment in time makes it through, but sometimes as time goes, it's like it's losing it's rusting, you know. So then I rework it, right? So maybe, but sometimes laziness is part of it.
What was the song that you performed on Jeff's musical car, by the way? I was trying to find it and tried to discover. I was like, what is this? Mm-hmm. And I'll fully admit I lost the second Brothers Creeggan album, so maybe it's on there, and and I missed it because of that.
It'll be, if it's on an album, it'll be on Brothers Creeggan 5.
Nice.
Oh,
it's not on any album. It's called Convey. Just one of those tunes. It's just lying and waiting.
Is there anywhere people can go to hear that other than that interview, or is that the only recording publicly available?
You could probably find. I'm sure we did it on the Ships and Dips cruises at some point with some of those Brothers Creeggan sets. I don't know if you have those recorded, but I'm sure we did that tune then.
There's quite a few of them on YouTube, so I'm not.
Yeah, it could very well be part of that.
Yep, it is on the Ships and Dips 5 tour. You guys did play Convey as Brothers Creeggan.
Well, there you go.
Nice.
I will be posting that. Another Brothers Creeggan question. The song Coastline.
Yep.
What are those squeaks? I was sitting there and I was listening to it. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, what is Jim running his bow up and down the side of the cello? Like, what is that noise? Sound. It's not noise, but it's a great sound.
It's the byproduct of a crappy guitar player is what it is. It's me playing from It's me going from one chord to the other and not being able to take this whip, whip, whip. It's just me swiping the strings as we go from one chord to the other. And we tried so hard to take it out. Like we put olive oil on my fingers, but it just wasn't good enough to try and get that sound away. But it's just one of those extra musical sounds that if you concentrate on it, it's like, oh my God, it's so loud. But then if you just listen to music, sometimes you sort of tune those things out. But in actual fact, I like extra musical sounds, like when an accordion, when you hear the fingers kick on the sound. And any other sounds, or like the sound of a pedal on a piano, when you actually start listening to the music and you start forget about the notes. I just like all that stuff anyway. So that's one of those extra musical things that just happens when you play guitar. Well,
it's like that Bob Ross saying of happy mistakes, and that to me on that song is a happy mistake. Like I love hearing that noise.
Yeah, and if you let it go, sometimes it sounds like seals going.
Andy, can I ask you a bit about your songwriting process? I'm just curious because for me personally, when I write a song, the lyrics, other than the title, the lyrics are probably the last thing to come. But I know some people write the lyrics first, some people write them simultaneously. That's just a tendency. I mean, obviously, sometimes you get an inspiration with a line and a lyric, but typically speaking, you seem like you're pretty instrumental forward. Do you think you tend to write the instruments first and then the lyrics, or vice versa?
It's a good question. I think it varies. I'm going to give you a typical ambiguous answer.
Fair enough.
I mean, some songs, like for example, "Will You Come Back to Me," that I just sang it once, and then went back and listened and remembered the melody and figured out what the harmony was, and then created an arrangement around it, and then fleshed it out and added a little bit more. But it came from actually just singing it out of my mouth, and that's happened occasionally on some tunes.
Will you come back to me? Will you come back to me, baby? Baby, will you come back? Will you come back to me?
Other tunes, like for example, "Stuck" or "Stay Long and Slow."
How's the chicken? You clean up the kitchen. What is the glory? Around us boring. Folded a Frodo. Long and slow. Long and slow. Long and slow.
Those come out of coming up with a guitar riff and then gradually fitting in melodies, and then, or just sometimes, I mean, in the case of "Stuck," it was really about singing over top of it, no words, and then gradually words come out as your mouth changes vowels, and you kind of realize, and then it's like, oh yeah, that kind of works, and then gradually it becomes a subject, and then you can sort of flesh it out with the other words.
I'm stuck on you. I've always been the missing one, but who's been the missing one?
So both those things exist and everything in between. Let me think of some other songs. Yeah, it's usually sitting at a piano or guitar. Singing and then trying to figure what goes with what I sang, or starting with a riff or a melody or a chord progression and trying to figure out what the sound coming, or you're jamming with someone and then something comes out.
So it's not like Paul McCartney where you see a bluebird fly by and you're like, I'm going to write a song about that.
No, usually it's really rare that I've actually sat down to say, I'm going to write a song about my brother pissing me off. I don't think.
You heard that, Jim.
A lot of it's not a conscious thing in my case anyway, but some people.
So that actually brings me into a question I had about the lyrics for "Taking Out the Garbage."
Taking out the garbage, I'm cleaning up my place. I'll put it on a curtain, take it to someone else's space.
That seems to me quite dark, potentially. Or is that just to be taken literally as someone who doesn't like to think about the dirty stuff they have to do?
I think it's Jim's sort of his environmental period.
Yeah.
And he was thinking about the good that he wanted to do in the world, and was being heavily influenced by Gord.
Gord Downie.
Gord Downie, yeah.
I
So
love
the
it.
whole thing, I see your dog doesn't really bite. So really trying to be Gord Downie, basically.
Yeah.
But I think it was kind of an environmental stance, you know.
Are there any songs off from the Brothers Creeggan albums that we could kind of listen to that would be like, I came to Brothers Creeggan with that. We worked on it together, but I kind of came with that major kind of idea started already.
I think what he's asking is, was it all very, very collaborative 50-50, or were there a few songs that were definitely like your DNA all over it?
Oh, well, chances are if you sing lead on a song, it's kind of your baby.
Oh.
And the other might contribute a bridge or contribute something to it or add some lyrics to it, but it basically starts, there. So if I had, You Will Be Adored is Jim's song. And I added the bridge and added those harmonies.
I used to call you Blue Eyes, though your eyes are brown. Eyes of you.
But it's basically a Jim song. She married a cowboy.
She married a cowboy and he won't do nothing wrong. Too late, it's too late.
She married a cowboy is kind of collaborative in the sense that I started it and was kind of making fun of Jim because he was talking about his ex-girlfriend that married a cowboy, an actual cowboy. And I was like, oh, she married. And I realized, wait a sec, that could be a song. So with his current girlfriend, he wrote the verses.
That's great.
So that one was kind of a neat collaboration. And then and Long and Slow is basically me saying, okay, this is a song and this is what we're going to do it. And some of the other ones too, Gray, same. But Jim added a bridge to that one. So I think you can use that as a blueprint. If we sing lead on it, chances are it was us starting.
Are there any lyrics that stand out for you as like you would say, and I know this is always like trying to pick your kids, but any lyrics that stand out as these are some of my favorite lyrics I've written?
I don't know. I'd have to get back to you on that, but I'm pretty proud of the back, like probably Brothers Creeggan. I'm pretty proud of the back half of that album. Like if I started, like around Sometimes and Let Her Roll through in Gray, By Song, Will You Come Back to Me, Long and Slow. I was thinking there's maybe Sometimes is there. I find it's just a real nice collection of songs that give you a real groove. I really like lyrics though. I'm pretty proud of just Gray. It's not trying to be like poetry, but I find it. I think I hit something there. I also like By Song.
Come down here and go. Come down.
Pretty proud of it. Artistically, I find that sometimes it was some good work there.
Yeah, sometimes it's lyrically brilliant. I love that.
Sometimes I'm sincere, but you're
I know Jim particularly likes, although I'm always a little bit shy about the actual song itself, but the Vote for Beauty, I think, is...
Yes.
It's got some...
From Sleepyhead, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Got some staying power
to
it. There's some real emotion in there. And
this is a vote for beauty. That grace will come.
I think it's got something there. I like to sing a lot, not so much.
I like to sing a lot, yeah. I like to sing a lot, yeah, yeah. I like to sing a lot. I like to sing a wow.
That one's
But there's something there. It sticks with you. On the topic of that first Brothers Creeggan album, when I first heard Fallen
Out of, I'm falling out of your tree.
I have to say, my first thought when I heard the piano on that track was, oh man, I'm hearing some Ben Folds in there. But that album was released a year before Ben Folds 5's first album ever. Do you think Ben was listening to you? I'm being quasi-facetious here, but it really does have a similar feel. Have you met Ben? Have you interacted with him at all? Do you like his work? Just kind of
love his work for sure. Oh yeah, man. When Philosophy came out, I was just
I love that song.
Floored.
I love that song.
The sound of the band, the approach to the backups. Starting words and finishing them. Way later. Phil.
Yeah. Awesome.
And his voice was so great, and use of the piano and the band, and just there was so many aspects to it that we just loved. And then there's some humor in there, and just great music. So for sure, Ben Folds a big fan. But was he influenced by Paul? I don't know.
You never know. I'm calling it now.
Did he do the cruise the same time that you did? Like, was he on one of the cruises the same time you were on the cruise with the Ships and Dip?
I don't think so.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
He was on one of the cruises?
I believe he was. I'd have to look it up, and there was 5 of them, so it's I can't remember who was on which one.
I don't think I was on the one with him, but that would have been pretty excited about that.
What kind of music do you listen to relax, or just to kind of put yourself in a creative state of mind, or just for recreation? Like, what do you like to
Andiworks
listen to? Well,
Andiworks IV.
There you go.
I listen to my own music, really. When I have a moment to kind of just check out stuff, I listen to and sort of see how it's aging, and try to make some just headway with it. But music that I enjoy, I listen to classical music. That's what I've been listening to. Or I still listen to revisit Pat Metheny. He's one of my young high school musical heroes. And every now and then I go back and listen to some of those albums. Like Still Life Talking is an album that I always enjoyed. There are certain aspects of it that are a little bit cheesy now that I find, but I still enjoy a lot of it. And I love his approach to percussion. I just felt that it was just like the ultimate music. It was jazz, it was instrumental, but there was interesting arrangements. There were bridges. Lyle Mays was always doing interesting stuff on the keyboard side of things, and there was always lots of room for percussion. And of course, one of my big heroes is I can't remember his name, Nana Vasconcelos, who was always sitting in and making great percussion sounds and just adding so much. Yeah, so I revisit Pat Metheny. I also enjoy Paul Simon and his. Just not necessarily a big fan of his songs per se, but I love the textures that he's created, and I love the musicians that he works with, and I love just the sounds that he gets. But that said, Rhythm of the Saints is still a really important album for me, and Graceland. Those 2 albums were so influential for me in big, important times of my life, and I revisit those often. And I listen to artists that are happening now. Often I'm put in a position to listen to new stuff, and listening to a lot of people just around here. Just either francophone artists. There's a lot of great, wonderful artists all over the place. Some of you guys might be interested. The last thing I produced was actually a band from here called Les Paiens, called the Paiens, but in French, Paiens. And I produced their last 2 albums. It's a kind of instrumental, progressive kind of jazz.
And that's when you had produced
their last 2 albums.
I'm going to type that down and look it up and send it to everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Do you have a favorite Barenaked Ladies song to play? Is there a song that you really loved playing that song? If you had a chance, that's the song you'd pick up to play anytime.
Huh. Well, I definitely have my favorites. I remember always my highlights during sets were The Flag. I always enjoyed
it. That's a great one. I
just enjoyed what that was. I thought there was a side of the Barenaked Ladies that was often overlooked.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was partly our fault. We were always we had some really great songs. Stephen was, he had a dark side that was rarely put into focus, but it was there. And The Flag is an example. And I thought just musically and the song is great. And it's always one of my favorites to listen to.
Yeah. Totally agree with you.
Yeah, in our episode on that song, we actually mentioned how that was a song that we would show somebody who maybe wasn't as aware of the well-rounded and kind of diverse nature of Barenaked Ladies' catalog, and show them this is a different side of the band you might not have heard.
Yeah, and it's, like I said, it's partly our fault, but I had always enjoyed that line, and it was live, and it was a great song to sing on. I love the harmonies we put to it, and I enjoyed, Jim was always doing his best on the bow, really adding some serious emotion. Ed was just holding the fort, just playing his great rhythm guitar. That's one song I always enjoyed, and I enjoyed "Blame It on Me." That's a song I like. Crazy always.
Yeah.
And partly is because of what I was describing earlier. Just you could understand how great a rhythm guitar player Ed was, and the way him and Jim were able to really collaborate rhythmically in such a really cool way. And me playing those chords, just sort of floating on top, adding my spice, and the backups were so fun to sing all the time.
Yeah.
really,
The harmonies on that are just point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And one of my favorites of that particular song was playing it at the Glastonbury Music Festival.
Very cool.
And it served as a sound check because we didn't have a sound check. So we said, well, we'll start with Crazy because it's kind of, you add an instrument by instrument, right? So, and by the end, everything's there. So
right.
At least gives our sound man a chance to get things going. I found that was it was our first time in Glastonbury, and we had the slot, and people were just hot and hanging out and just sitting down. And it's like, oh, okay, what's the next thing? And we were nervous. And it was just a set that we felt like we just killed it, And I think starting with Crazy was a good setup for it. And the people were on their feet by the end. I remember just being so jazzed about that set, so excited that we were able to win over a tent full of people, a bunch of hippie. So I remember taking photos from the stage of that just because I was so excited. But Crazy had a lot to do with that. So Crazy is one of my favorites. Playing Great Provider was always a favorite of mine because I felt that it took the band into a neat place where everyone had a place, and it wasn't solos. It wasn't a guitar solo. It was just that instrumental bit was what I'd always hoped that we could develop into. Is just a kind of instrumental section where everyone had a little something to do, and there was collaboration and there was reaction, and I really enjoy. It's like a band solo where everyone's kind of doing his thing and adding his grain of salt, right? So I really enjoyed that.
It reminds me a lot of Brian Wilson. The end of Brian Wilson really reminds me a lot of you each bringing the best of you into the end of that song, and it just becomes this beautiful blend.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a pretty exciting part. I remember the first time we were, at the end where I just can't stop, and it's just like I don't feel like this is the end of the song. Like let's just keep going, and then it became that outro.
I always thought that sounded very James Bond after that, like the doom doom.
For sure. But and then Jim came up with this crazy bass line, man. Just really went for it, and I go crazy on the congas as well. And it was always a fun thing to do as well live. No question about that.
Must have been exhausting though. Like that song is so up. Like by the end of it, it's just like a crescendo of ultimate speed.
It's an accelerando, sir.
Yeah, but not.
Okay, I'm using.
Well, that actually, because you mentioned the end of Brian Wilson, now that has me curious because one of my favorite songs, actually, Barenaked Ladies altogether, is "What a Good Boy," and the album version stops pretty abruptly. It just does that quick fade out. But if you listen to the live version when they did the live album a little bit later, has that long. It comes back and then it just explodes with this long, gorgeous instrumental piece. Was that done while you were still there? Like when you did the live show, was that okay? Because that I always wondered why that was never on the album because that's one of the.
I guess
that's
we
epic.
just thought somehow it just wasn't appropriate for the album version or whatever. It could have been just, thinking that the radio wouldn't go
Right.
for it or some stupid thought like that. But, live was fun to do. That one had a real nice emotional bubble, that song. It was always fun to do too.
Yeah.
When you were on the Ships and Dip, you chose an interesting song to play. You played a lot on that cruise, but it was interesting that you chose a song to play that wasn't a song that was when you were with the band. You chose to do Conventioneers. What made you choose to do that song? That's a really interesting choice.
I don't know. I remember Jim was excited about the bass playing on it. So that I think first time I listened to it was like, oh, this is cool, nice bass line, Jim, that's great. But then I realized I really enjoyed the actual song. It was one of my favorites that they had come out with in a while. And I liked the melody. And it kind of came up, so it would be fun to do a Barenaked Ladies song during our set. And it's like, I think that's my fave, that one. And so I did a version on the piano, one of the Ships and Dips, and then I did a kind of a Caetano Veloso, Brazilian kind of samba kind of version on the guitar. And
that's the one that I was able to find online. It's just it's so different than the Steve version, and I love the Steve version absolutely, but your version is so different that I can't compare the two and say one's better than the other because I absolutely love both of them.
Yeah, thanks. Well, that's cool. And it's just part of me just wanting to learn guitar, so finding riffs and try to find songs that I could sing over top just to practice the riff. And there's one guitar riff that goes really well with Material Girl. So I would, Madonna song. So I learned Material Girl in this sort of Brazilian kind of song. And then that one, it worked well with another certain kind of guitar style. So I learned the song there. And I always liked it anyway on the piano. And so, Conventioneers, it was fun. Or no, Everything Had Changed. That's another one I did too. Yeah, that's right. Everything Had Changed on the piano and then did, Conventioneers on the guitar.
Now I got to look that one up.
Yeah, you'll find that one.
Now on my list of things to look up for the week. I was noticing, going through here, that you were on everything. You guys all interchanged constantly, who was playing what on Ships and Dip. So you'd be there for Brothers Creeggan, but then you'd do some solo stuff. Then you'd come in for some Barenaked Ladies stuff. And Tyler might come in. Jim might leave out for some stuff. Evan might come in. It was constantly flowing who was playing. You guys must have been exhausted by the end of that cruise.
Yeah, I know. I remember Jim, we roomed together for at least one of those Ships and Dips. And a good part of his being in the room was, writing out charts for whatever artist was playing so that he could, part of the joy of being on that thing was to sit in with other artists and just enjoy what they were doing. So, yeah. Was it exhausting? No. Yeah, it was. It was exhausting, but it was a hugely rich experience, learning and playing with some of these great musicians.
No, you guys looked like you were having a wonderful time.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, that happened about the same time that I had kids. So I was like, I'm not going to be able to go on this cruise that I really wish I had been on.
Yeah. I think one of them, our youngest son, was like 3 months, and that was the cutoff, They won't allow us, so. But he got on there, and it went well.
Is there any luck in getting to see a video recording online anywhere of the concert that you conducted with Steve singing front, you conducting the orchestra last year?
Oh, I don't know. Could be. I haven't seen any. Or there's a bunch of pictures that were taken, but I'm sure someone probably took a video of it at some point. But I haven't come across any. I don't have any leads there. But that was fun. Yeah, I hope to do more conducting. That's something I'm enjoying lately. It's fun to do.
As you know, we're a podcast that discusses Barenaked Ladies songs specifically. Are there any other favorite memories that you would love to share about your time with Barenaked Ladies?
Oof, it was a rich time. There's so many experiences, so much traveling, so much to say. Experience. My favorite times. Anytime we got to do something that was just completely out of the ordinary, that a kid growing up in the suburbs wouldn't ever have been able to do. So whether it was playing shows in Nogales, New Mexico, in a bar there, or just opening up for some amazing musicians, or
playing the rooftops of Portland, Maine.
Yeah, or meeting Pat Metheny as we were mastering our album, big deal, or going to see Eddie Palmieri in New York it's like one of my Latin music heroes, just going to see that and just understanding why it is so incredible. But also and just riding cabs in New York City, just that alone was just a big deal for this little kid who grew up in the suburbs, and the travel and getting to knowing all those cities and getting to know people in those cities that are so cool. Because if you look, example, a Canadian kid growing up in Toronto, you get to know America through the media, right? And so you get a certain bias about what's going on down there. And then you go there and then you realize, my God, there's so many cool people down here that I wouldn't have known if I'd have just relied on the media to tell me about what Americans are like. And so many cool places and cool people. I enjoyed all our times in Europe. Anytime we were driving around and playing shows in Scotland and England, and the time we spent in Germany and Amsterdam. And I just value those times so much, just to walk around those cities and meet people. Incredible. And Ireland, same. And all the festivals that we were able to play, the Glastonbury Festival was so fun. So fun. And to be a part of it, to be one of the artists involved and then meet other artists as equals was so cool. Just the WOMAD festivals that we went to, just incredible experiences. So those festivals, I'd say any festivals that we went to was an incredible experience. And we elevated our shows because we were so inspired by what was around us, and the people that went to the festivals were there because they just wanted to just absorb great stuff. They were there because they wanted to be there. And the vibe of those festivals was so incredible. So I remember just that. Those are some of the best times. And then also the times in studio, I cherish those times, being creative and just really getting downtown with the textures we were creating, and then the times we were singing and singing over again and singing over again and not quite working and singing more, and then finally coming up with something that felt right, and realizing later how that hard work and the attention to detail spoke, as time went on. So I'm so proud of that work that we did. It's hard to pick one of those things, but those are all really cherish.
First and foremost, thank you, Andy, for talking to us. This has been wonderful. Andy, I was going to ask, where can people go online to check in on your latest project? Do you have a website you'd like to send them to, or anywhere that you'd like to plug?
Andiwork, you can find 2 and 3, I think. Andiwork 1, I think if you look on YouTube, someone's put it up there. So
yeah, the entire album's up there.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
So everything is more or less there. I don't know if I think Brothers Creeggan 1 and 2 are there as well. Anyway, but so those albums are all there. I don't know. Just I'll probably put something on my Facebook page if I've done something or come up with something. The Brothers Creeggan website is defunct now. We just decided there just wasn't enough action to keep that going. So I'll post on my Facebook page, I guess, if I've got something going on that's recording wise. I'll try to get out there as much as I can. I'm a pretty shy guy though, so.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. People don't know this, but you said you were able to do a certain amount of time. You've gone long beyond that time. You've been very giving
thank
your
you
time.
so much.
Yes, thank you, Andy.
Very much, Andy.
Talk to us.
It's what your passions are, and it's been a pleasure.
My hopes, of course, is that after we're done with covering all the Barenaked Lady songs, we're going to do the Barenaked Lady adjacent songs. So all of the solo projects and outside projects that come, and hopefully, we can have you back on when we cover Brothers Creeggan and go over those songs. We would love to do that. But even if not, having you on tonight was an amazing experience, and I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for agreeing to do this.
Okay, it was a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks again, sir.
Really
Thanks,
nice.
Andy.
Nice to meet you all.
Yes, nice to meet you too.
Have a great evening.
Yeah, thank you. Guys, thank you.
Thanks, that was fun. Don't forget, no regrets, except maybe one.
Jeff, I know we've left you silent. I'm going to let you jump in here.
Actually, come back to me. I had a question. I just lost it.
Way to put him on the spot, Tracy.
To celebrate joining Pantheon Podcasts, Rock Camp, the podcast, the official podcast of Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, is giving away a guitar signed by Mike Portnoy of Dream Theater, Marty Friedman, formerly of Megadeth, and legendary shredder Zakk Wylde, plus our rockstar counselors like Vinny Appice, Monty Pittman, and more. To enter to win, simply follow, rate, and review our podcast on your preferred platform, and that's all you have to do. For more information, go to rockcamp.com/podcast.